I want to tell you a story of one of my most powerful testimonies, which quickly turned from being one of my most powerful testimonies. An unexplainable event quickly became the testimony of hundreds, if not thousands, of Zillow employees, all because of one call. Y'all, the way this just landed on my heart, I'm shaking. If you know my story, then you know that I've been on this app. I've been TikTok famous since 2020. I really blew up in 2021. But in my real life, in 2021 and 2022, it was the busiest I've ever been because the market was insane. In 2021, I sold just under 100 houses alone. Just me. So you can only imagine how busy I was trying to do my normal job and maintain my videos here on this app. And I never take time off. That is, except this day. I had been a psychic clairvoyant medium my whole life, and I was good, yo. The world called me a psychic clairvoyant medium, but my friends called me the small, medium, at large. Because I've always been itty bitty. I know things and I see things. But in 2022, one day I woke up and I heard the very, very, very vivid message, stop. This was in October of 2022. I thought it was my spirit guides telling me stop doing readings for a little while. We don't want you to hear something about Andrea, because at the time my best friend had terminal cancer. When I do readings, sometimes I would get messages out of nowhere for myself. So I assumed that's what they were telling me, stop. Boy, was I wrong. And on that same day, I was also very compelled because I've always been a Christian every day of my life. I don't care what mockers and scoffers say. If you knew me in real life, Christian, medium. That's how I rolled. In fact, I could barely count the number of readings I had done outside of doing readings on live for TikTok. I never do them in my personal life because I'm way too busy. Plus, I never charge for my readings, so, well, work kept me so busy. And then Andy being sick, I just didn't do readings other than on my lives. Anyways, that same day I was very led to buy a new Bible. I've always had a Bible, but it was the King James and all the thous, the arts, the these. In hindsight, that's not really all that difficult, but to me it was boring. And now I have learned it is far from boring. That is the most incredible book in the world. But I had ordered the NIV version, all in this same day. Soon after I was shown, stop meant stop communicating with these spirits because most of them are familiar spirits. You've been deceived. Anyways, I denounced being a medium. And I dedicated every single second, and when I say every single second of my living day, and when I dream, to my Father and to Yeshua, well, if you followed me, then you know. Fast forward to the day that my Bible arrived. This was a day I actually took off because of my neck. It was hurting really bad. I was laying in my bed on my heating pad, which I never take time off. I need you to understand this. And just a little info, as a realtor, we utilize things like Zillow for leads. And in 2021, 2022, whew, I would get anywhere from 10 to 15. And so I knew the process when I would get these lead phone calls from Zillow, like literally the back of my hand. You'd get a text with the information, the client's name. And in this situation, his name was Brian. I'll never forget it. And then the phone would ring. It would be Zillow. Typically, the answer to the call would be the client. He'd say, hi. I'd say, I'm Colette. Hi, Brian. And we'd start talking. But if it continued to ring and ring and ring, I knew something was going to happen. And the client would not pick up. When it rang and rang and rang, we would always get transferred to a human Zillow rep. And I got so many of these calls every day, most often, no, always, I knew the rep. They would say, hey, Colette, looks like they hung up. Let me get them back on the line. Give me a second and I'll reconnect you guys. So I'd wait. 2 seconds later, hey, I've got Brian on the phone. Brian, this is Colette. You guys have an incredible day. That is how it worked every single time. So the things you need to know is I know the client's name beforehand. If it rings a couple times and it picks up, it's the client. If it rings and rings and rings, then I know I'm going to talk to a human who works for Zillow, and they're going to get my client back on the line and connect us. That's just how it goes. Like I said, this day I was hurting really bad. So I was laying on my bed with my new Bible on my legs on a heating pad, and I was talking to my Abba. This was still so new into my born again journey. I'd say only maybe a month after I had been born again because I got my name etched on my Bible. So it took a minute for it to get here. I had yet to open my Bible and something told me, pray before you open it like you do everything randomly, because the first message I want you to hear from me, my child, is going to be one of the most profound you'll never forget. So I started to talk to him and I said exactly this. Abba, am I making you proud? Am I on the right track? Am I doing and saying the right things? Abba, am I on the track? And I said one more thing again. I said, Abba, well, at the time I said God, because at that time I didn't know his real name. I said, God, am I making you proud? And right then the phone rang. Another thing you need to know about me is if I'm on the phone, it's always on speaker because of this neck. It's just a thing. I looked down and I saw that it was Zillow, and I looked in the app and I saw the name was Brian. So I was ready. I answered the call. And it rang, and it rang, and it rang, And it rang and it rang and it rang. And I was just waiting for that Zillow rep to pick up. And suddenly I heard a really weird sound like, brrr! And that was pretty close to it. And then it happened. I didn't get a Zillow rep. I got something I'd never gotten before, and I have never gotten since. Well, I don't use Zillow anymore for the past year and a half or so, but in 2021 and 2022, this had never happened. So if it happens now, I don't know. But it had never happened before this. And for a year or two later, again, it never happened since. After that sound, brink, it startled me. It got my attention, which I think is exactly what the Holy Spirit wanted. I heard an automated voice say exactly this. Jesus is on the line. Yeah, exactly like that. Jesus is on the line. And then the call dropped. The way I threw my phone, I ran downstairs to Uncle Mike faster than I think I've ever ran. I think I flew down those stairs. I was shaking. I was crying. Uncle Mike has witnessed enough Zillow calls in our life together. He knows how they work too. I was just like, babe, you won't believe this. I was praying to Abba. I was praying to God, and I'm asking him, am I making you proud? Tell me, am I on the right track? Am I doing good? Am I making you proud? And then I got a Zillow lead from Brian. He's like, I'm so confused. I don't know what's going on. I told him what happened and how it said, Jesus is on the line. And then the call hung up. Uncle Mike is Uncle Mike, and I love him, and I don't know how sometimes, but he was like, oh, that's cool. I was like, I don't know. But I'm glad that he did it because everything happens in God's way and time. Frustrated with Uncle Mike, I grabbed my brand new Bible and I went out to the garage to have a schmig, and I sat on the steps where I always did. New Bible in hand. And for the first time, I opened it directly after this had occurred. Do you want to know what Bible verse I opened it to? Satan doesn't want me sharing it on the green screen, yo. Isaiah 65:24. Before they call, I will answer. And while they are still speaking, I will hear. That was the very first verse I ever opened my Bible to. Boy, he was not wrong. That is a verse I will never forget. Before they call, I will answer. While they are still speaking, I will hear. But that's when it dawned on me. And that's when I called my Zillow rep. You see, with Zillow, they always log every single call. Every call is saved in their system, but even more so, every single call is recorded. Oh, I couldn't get on the phone with him fast enough. I said, Julian, you won't believe what just happened. And it was an automated thing. He's like, what? I said, yes. He's like, that doesn't, I said, I know. I said, I need you to go back and find this call. I need it. I need it as my ringtone. I need to hear it all the time. And then I was thinking in my mind, wait a second. You see, with real estate, code of ethics is huge, huge. Equal rights, all of it, and rightfully so. And although my client, the new one's name was Brian, if it had been a client that was Hispanic named Jesus, and they used an automated system and didn't pronounce it correctly, they could get into some trouble. His name wasn't Jesus. His name was Brian. My Zillow rep looked into it and he called me back. He said, Colette, you won't believe this. I see the call. I see that you answered it. I don't see a recording at all. It didn't record. I'm like, what? They always record. In fact, sometimes I have to be reminded because sometimes I get a little sassy and we kind of say, well, I used to say curse words with my clients sometimes, like, anywho, I'm a changed creature. They always record the calls, but I'm kind of glad that in this case, it didn't because it didn't record it. According to my Zillow rep, my story and that phone call may have saved hundreds, if not thousands of Zillow employees that day. Because this story spread through Zillow like wildfire. My whole story. The fact that it was an automated thing that said, Jesus is on the line, and then disconnected. We had tech people after tech people trying to find if it got recorded anywhere. Everyone could see the proof that yes, in fact, there was a call. I answered it, and the call only lasted maybe 2 or 3 seconds, just like Jesus is on the line would, but even the techiest of techs at Zillow could not find a way that it was recorded. And with that, my rep said that you had a miracle happen today. And I'm here to tell you there are so many people working at Zillow that because of this, because of you, because of what happened, ultimately now they have found God. Abba, am I making you proud? Am I on the right track saying and doing the right things? Abba, God, am I making you proud? Pretty sure I was praying to Jesus too, because I tend to do that. And before I even finished that sentence, before I called, he answered. While I was still speaking, he heard. Because that day my Father showed me the most undeniable way. Yes, my child, you are making me proud, so proud. And Jesus, he really is on the line. Is that not the most beautiful thing?